Welcome to Simple Software Tutorials. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create your own resume template in Microsoft Word. Now, in one of my previous videos, I showed you how to use these pre-formatted templates, and maybe you've gone through and looked at them. I've gone through and looked at them, but they don't quite lay out how I expect them to. Sometimes the formatting's kind of weird, and so what I thought would be helpful is to show you how to create your own resume template that works for you. So I'm just going to start by opening a blank template. So I've just got my template laid out here. Now, I have quite a lot of work experience, so what I like to do is make sure I've maximized my space usage. So one of the first things I want to do, besides saving this document, is I want to go to layout and I want to change the margins. So I want to have narrow margins. I want to make the most of this space here. So what I'm planning on doing is, of course, I want, my name and contact information up here at the top where it's very easy to find. I want to do some sections with a skills section, education, some work experience, and things like that. So what I'm going to start with is I want to start with inserting a table. So let's see here. So I want a couple sections here. So I'm going to go to insert and then table. So you can kind of choose what you want as a layout here. So what I'm going to do, okay, let's just start with maybe a 2x2 table. Okay, so what I can do is I can bring this over here. Okay, so what I want is up here to be my summary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these sections here, and then I want to go to layout here, and I want to merge these sections so I can have my summary here. I'm just going to write summary. And then yes, this will be my summary down here, just kind of explaining that's typically your objective. So what are you trying to accomplish with this resume? Now over here, I'm going to put my key skills. I like to bullet point those so they're easy to look at. And then we can go down and we can do maybe a certifications section. Again, we want to bullet point those. And then over here, I want my work experience. Okay, so you may have noticed that I made it very clear that I want my name and contact information across the top here. So the way I'm going to do that makes it pretty easy is I'm going to put that in a header. So we want to click on insert and then we want to click on header. I always click on this drop down arrow so I can have some options here. So there's a lot of different options that you can have here if you scroll on through. So we've got just a blank, we have a blank with 3 columns built in there. We have some different styles here. So I feel like this is an opportunity where you can get a little more creative. This is basically what I'm showing you is for a pretty basic resume. If you want to get fancy with it, be as fancy as you want, but keep it within your skill set. I'd rather receive a resume that maybe is pretty basic than one that's overly done and maybe done wrong. So I'm just going to click this blank one right here. So we're going to type our name here and then maybe our phone, add some spaces, add a little pipe there, and then email address. Okay, so this isn't very fancy looking. So again, I want to get that centered there. Let's make the name big, 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 maybe 18 point font. We can bold it there. Make sure you're using a consistent font. Make sure you're using a professional, nice, just a very basic font. I'm just using Microsoft Word's default Calibri font here. or if you use Arial, I'd recommend against using like Times New Roman or serif fonts like that have the little curly cues on them. Just keep a nice basic font that's more modern looking. You'll appear to, be with the times. That's just just kind of a basic thing here. So now something you may notice is that my name, my contact information is kind of pushing this down. So let's click on header and footer. So you can see my header from the top distance is 1/2 inch. Now, if you remember from when I set my margins, I set them to 1/2 inch as well. So this stuff is going to overlap. That's not cool. So what we want to do here is drop our header from the top. So maybe we want to put it at 1/4 inch here down. Now keep in mind also that you want to keep a good margin here, just in case they're probably likely to print it out. So you want to make sure that it prints out well, that it formats nicely, that it looks good. So I may need to change my top margin a bit just to make sure that everything lays out right. So let's close this and let's take a look. So let's click on File and Print. So it's laying out okay right here in the print preview. So that's something that you should make sure that everything lays out well. Something I should mention is that we can get rid of these border lines here. They're just here for right now. So you've got your name, you've got your summary. I like to bold this. Same with key skills, certifications. I'm just double clicking, which selects the whole line, and Control B for that. So work experience, you're going to want to include things like your company name, your title there, your dates employed, potentially the location, if that's helpful. And then what you're going to want to do here is just include a summary of your job requirements, summary of your achievements there. You want to quantify whenever possible. So if you're in sales, the ability to, you want to make sure that you're not revealing any information about your company that is confidential or that you should not be revealing. Be really cognizant of that. You don't want to be sharing information that you don't have the rights to share. But things to share is maybe if you can say like how many clients you had, how much you had in sales, percentages, anything that you can quantify. And that means with a number. If you can put a value down that I did X amount for X number of customers, or I did this position with this percentage of closure rate, things like that. Whatever you can quantify, put into a number or percentage, that is fantastic to include on your resume. You really want to highlight what you're most skilled at. And go down chronologically, most recent to latest. You can also add your education to it. And what you're going to want to do is, again, include your school, your degree, any affiliations that you had, any involvement, any special, anything remarkable that you did at that school, any special honors that you received. You could even include your GPA, especially if you have a limited amount of work experience. That can be helpful to include there, but not necessary, especially if it's been quite a while, not really super relevant anymore. And then what I like to include over here is I like to include my key skills. So any specific skills that I am, that I'm experienced in. So any special software, if you know how to use special like forklifts, if you have your CDL, anything, any special key skills that you have, this is where you can put them. Some will Also include how skilled they are, whether they're beginner, intermediate, expert. I don't like the word expert. I see that word a lot, and especially like from young people. You know, most people aren't experts, okay? And so basically, if if you say you're an expert, I'm probably not going to believe it unless you're extremely experienced in your field and in your line of work. So I'd just be cautious to to use the word expert unless you have very great documentation to support that. Certifications is another section that you can include there. So say you're certified in a type of software, anything there. You can include also like your food handler's permit. You can include things like that, and you don't have to call it certifications if it's not actually a certification, but that is a great thing to include there. So once you get all this stuff filled out, hopefully your resume fills up the page. And so then what you can do, try to keep it to about 1 page here. Now, we don't want to keep these lines here because, they're great to have for us as a reference, but you don't want that showing on your resume. So what we can do is click here. So where you see this right here, we can double click it, and that's going to bring up the table design. And that's where you can see borders. So what you can do here is you can choose what borders that you actually want to keep here. So maybe we want a line here or down there. You can choose that right here. So typically I like to start with no border, and then we can kind of figure out what borders we want to keep. So maybe we want, let's see, if we want from work experience to here, we want this border here, we can choose this left border, and so that's going to make that border here. Well, that kind of looks funny to not have this border under summary then, so I'm just going to update this. I'm just going to include, this is my objective because it is, so let's highlight this section here, and then border, we want the bottom border here. So we can do that. You can space it out a little, give it some breathing room, and feel free to adjust, make adjustments wherever needed. If again, if you don't have a lot of work experience, you can kind of space this out a bit more here. So if we do just a couple things here, you can kind of space it out a bit, give it some breathing room. If you want to, you can put a line here. You can do just kind of like that if you want, and get that big thick line there, but that's kind of a hassle to remove. That's actually one of my most popular videos, is how to remove that line. And you can always add more fields here too. So if you don't want to include certifications and education in the same field here, what we can do is let's get this shortened here by hitting delete. If you hit tab, that's going to put in a new row, so you've got some more columns here. So if you wanted to break this apart, you could do that. But I think it's important to understand how to make a resume look nice. I think a lot of people stress out about it. But basically, this is your career highlight reel. What have you excelled at? What have you accomplished? Clearly, you've done hopefully more than just sit in an office and exist, or wherever you work and exist. You've done things, you've talked to people, you have skills that are important, and these are the things that you need to highlight here. Imagine that whoever is reviewing this is going to spend 30 seconds looking at it. What key items do you want to convey to them so they know how good you are at everything that you do? So these are things that you want to do. So again, your key skills here. So maybe you're good at Microsoft Word and Microsoft Office. You can do things like that, and maybe you didn't notice that when I added this bullet point, I'll do it down here. I'm going to unbold this because I don't want this bolded. I can add a bullet point, but see, it pops it over into the middle, and I don't have a lot of space here. So what I want to do is I want to pop this over to the left. I want to decrease that indent, and that gives me some more room so I'm not cramming stuff in there. So you want to just have it neat, orderly, have it make sense. So I hope this was helpful to you. Hopefully, if you end up using a resume like this, you can find a great job. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great tutorials, hopefully. Check out my website, Simple Software Tutorials, and have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning in.